Welcome to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Portland District virtual public meeting for the draft environmental impact statement for the next Renewable Fuels Oregon LLC project. Please note this meeting is being recorded and it will be posted to the Corps' website. Today's public meeting is an important part of the Corps' evaluation of this project, and we value the public's input. Thank you for your interest in the project and for taking the time to attend and participate in today's meeting. My name is James Davidson, and I'm a project manager in our regulatory program. I'm also the primary point of contact for the next Renewable Fuels Oregon LLC environmental impact statement. Before we begin, I'd like to identify some of the terms you're likely to hear. This meeting is being conducted by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Portland District, or Corps. You may also see the Corps written as USACE or USACE. The applicant is Next Renewable Fuels Oregon LLC, referred to as the applicant or NEXT for short. The project is called the Next Renewable Fuels Oregon Project and may be abbreviated as the project. The contractor is the third-party contractor designated by the applicant to write the environmental impact statement with independent overview by the Corps. NEPA means the National Environmental Policy Act, and EIS means an environmental impact statement, which is prepared in two stages: a draft environmental impact statement, or DEIS, and a final environmental impact statement, or FEIS. This presentation will cover several topics, including an overview of the proposed project, a description of the Corps' review, what an EIS is, the roles and responsibilities in preparing an EIS, the next project NEPA review milestones, the next project EIS process, basic components of the draft EIS, the draft EIS comment period, remaining steps in the Corps review, a brief summary, a projected timeline to a final decision, and how to provide written and oral comments on the draft EIS. The purpose of the proposed project is to produce renewable fuels for markets on the west coast of the United States to meet the demand for fuels that are mandated by the Renewable Fuel Standard Program or other state mandates that require low carbon intensity fuels. The proposed project is a refining facility capable of producing up to 50,000 barrels per day of renewable diesel fuel and other fuel products from feedstocks such as vegetable oil, used cooking oil, animal tallow, and inedible corn oil. To do this, the applicant is proposing to construct a main access road, natural gas pipeline, rail spur, ladder tracks, and an access road, 4 pipelines to an existing wharf, a tank farm consisting of 21 tanks of various sizes, a pre-treatment plant, a hydrogen production facility, eco-fining units, a storm and process water treatment system, office administration and laboratory buildings, alongside site landscaping and fencing. The project would temporarily fill 31.5 acres of wetlands and permanently fill 104.3 acres of wetlands. To compensate for wetland and water body losses, NEXT proposes to enhance 466.10 acres of nearby wetlands currently used for silviculture. So why is the Army Corps of Engineers involved with the project to construct a renewable fuels refining facility? NEXT has requested a Department of the Army permit from the Corps and potentially permission under Section 408 of the Rivers and Harbors Act. Under Section 404 of the Clean Water Act, a Department of the Army permit is required for the discharge of dredged or fill material into waters in the United States. The construction activities NEXT proposes would result in the discharge of fill material into a significant amount of various waters of the United States, including wetlands. Under Section 14 of the Rivers and Harbors Act of 1899, or 408 for short, Corps permission is required to make alterations to, temporarily or permanently occupy, or use any U.S. Army Corps of Engineers federally authorized civil works project. The evaluation also includes, but is not limited to, the following legal requirements: a public interest review, which is a balancing of the benefits and detriments of the project on several factors, a determination whether the project complies with the Clean Water Act Section 404(b)(1) guidelines, Endangered Species Act consultation, Magnuson-Stevens Fishery Conservation and Management Act consultation, as well as National Historic Preservation Act coordination with state and tribal agencies. Both the 404 permit and 408 permission require the Corps to complete the NEPA review process prior to making a decision. This public meeting is being conducted as part of the NEPA review. For some additional background, the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, is a procedural statute that requires federal agencies, such as the Corps, to make informed decisions and to consider the impacts of a project on the human environment. An EIS is a public document that evaluates the effects of a project. The EIS provides an evaluation of the significant environmental impacts and informs decision makers and the public of reasonable alternatives. The environmental impact statement is prepared in two stages, the draft EIS and the final EIS. The components of the DEIS include discussion of the following: 1. The purpose and need for the project. 2. Project alternatives. 3. The affected environment and resources. And 4. Environmental consequences. The EIS itself does not contain a decision on the project. The Corps will use the EIS public input in coordination with other federal agencies such as the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, National Marine Fisheries Service, and various tribes to make a final decision on the 404 permit and the potential 408 permission. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Portland District is the lead federal agency responsible for the preparation of the next EIS. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Portland District is the lead federal agency responsible for the preparation of the next EIS. The Corps is responsible for the content and scope of this EIS. The Corps is also responsible for establishing and managing a schedule to complete this EIS. Cooperating agencies on the preparation of an EIS may be any federal, state, or local agency or Native American tribe that has jurisdiction by law over the project or special expertise regarding the evaluation of a project. At this time, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency is the only cooperating agency on the next EIS. Next Renewable Fuels is using LJA Environmental Services as its contractor to prepare the EIS. As stated earlier, the Corps, as the lead federal agency, oversees the preparation of this EIS and must independently evaluate its content. US Several milestones have occurred in the Corps' NEPA review process to reach the point where we are seeking comment on the draft EIS. These include: the Corps received a complete permit application on October 29, 2021. The Corps issued a public notice for the project on November 5, 2021, which provided the first opportunity for the public to comment on the proposed project. The Corps issued a determination that the proposed project would have a significant effect on the quality of the human environment on December 23, 2021. This is an initial step to prepare an EIS under NEPA. The Corps published a notice of intent to prepare an EIS for the proposed project in the Federal Register on May 10, 2022. The Corps completed the NEPA required scoping process for the proposed EIS from May 10 to June 9, 2022. The scoping process provided a second opportunity for public comment on the issues associated with the proposed project. The Corps issued the final scoping report on August 3, 2022, which identified the issues and resources that warranted further review in the EIS. The Corps then completed the DEIS in February of 2026. The DEIS was published in the Federal Register on March 6, 2026. This initiated the required 45-day comment period for the DEIS, which ends on April 20th, 2026. Public meetings are now being held on April 1st and April 2nd, 2026 to receive public comments regarding the DEIS and project alternatives. This is an overview of the next EIS process. The process began with a 30-day public scoping comment period. Based on input during scoping, the Corps prepared and published the draft EIS for public comment. The draft EIS comment period is 45 days. The comment period for the next draft EIS will close on April 20th, 2026. The Corps will review and respond to comments and revise the draft EIS as needed and then publish a final EIS. The Corps will then prepare a record of decision to document its determination whether to authorize the project. The decision whether to issue a Department of the Army Clean Water Act permit will be based on an evaluation of the probable impacts of the project on the public interest. That decision will reflect the national concern for both protection and utilization of important resources. The benefits which reasonably may be expected to accrue from the proposed project must be balanced against its reasonably foreseeable detriments. The final EIS will inform this balancing requirement. As a result of the scoping process discussed in Chapter 1 of the DEIS, the Corps identified 19 resource categories which warranted further evaluation for impacts resulting from the proposed project. These include geology and soil, air quality, odor, surface waters and floodplains, groundwater, water quality, wetlands, fish and wildlife, vegetation, socioeconomics, cultural resources and historic properties, land use, traffic and transportation, rail, marine vessels and navigation, hazardous materials, public health and safety, aesthetics, and visual resources. The Corps is seeking comments on the DEIS analysis of the environmental impacts on these resources. As a result of a multiple-step screening process discussed in Chapter 2 of the DEIS, 4 alternatives for the proposed project were carried forward for further review. The alternatives consist of 3 potential locations for the construction of the proposed project and a no-action alternative under which the proposed project would not be built. Alternative 1, which is the applicant's preferred alternative, would result in the construction of the proposed facility and its supporting infrastructure at the Port Westward Industrial Park in Columbia County, Oregon. Alternative 2 would result in the construction of the proposed facility and its supporting infrastructure at the former Northwest Alloy site in Cowlitz County, Washington. Alternative 3 would result in the construction of the proposed facility and its supporting infrastructure at the Port of Woodland, Cowlitz County, Washington. Under Alternative 4, the no-action alternative, the proposed project would not be built. The Corps is seeking comment on the DEIS analysis of the environmental impacts of these alternatives. The objective of the DEIS comment period is to hear from you. The DEIS comment period provides an opportunity for government agencies, tribes, and the public to review and comment on the proposed project and alternatives. How will DEIS comments be used? Your comments may ensure sufficient analysis of alternatives and environmental effects, ensure that viewpoints are adequately discussed, result in revisions to the final EIS, or help identify new sources of data or information. To promote informed decision-making, comments on the DEIS should be as specific as possible, may address either the adequacy of the DEIS or the merits of the alternatives discussed or both. Comments should explain why the issues raised are important to the consideration of potential environmental effects and alternatives to the proposed project. Where possible, comments should reference the corresponding section or page number of the DEIS, propose specific changes to those parts of the statement, and describe any data, sources, or methodology that support the proposed changes. There are steps remaining in the core review process prior to a final decision on the project, which include, but are not limited to, Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act consultation is ongoing. This consult is informed by the NEPA process, but is a separate legal requirement that must be completed. In December of 2025, the Corps received additional information from the applicant related to the 408 permission regarding the potential use of an existing road on top of a levee to bring construction equipment to the proposed facility site. The Corps is coordinating with the applicant on the details of how the applicant would utilize existing transportation infrastructure to bring equipment and materials to the site for construction. As stated in the draft EIS, that could be via an existing road that is on top of a levee or by rail. If the applicant continues with the proposal to use the road on top of the levee, the necessary engineering analysis will be conducted prior to a 408 permission or Section 404 permit being issued. In summary, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Portland District has received a request from Next Renewable Fuels LLC for a Department of the Army Clean Water Act permit and potentially a Section 408 permission. The Corps is currently soliciting comments on the DEIS to inform the completion of the FEIS. This FEIS will evaluate the environmental consequences of the project and the project alternatives. The Corps will use the FEIS in conjunction with other relevant information, including public and agency comments, to inform the final decision of whether to authorize the project under applicable laws. The Corps will prepare a record of decision to document the final decision after publication of the FEIS. Under Section 404 of the Clean Water Act, the Corps may decide to 1. Issue a permit, 2. Issue a permit with modification, or 3. Deny the permit. The following is a basic summary of the Corps' projected timeline to reach a final decision. These dates are current estimates and are provided solely to inform the public. It is important to note that this timeline is subject to change based on the amount of time it actually takes to complete all remaining steps in the Corps' review process. First, the Corps, applicant, and contractor will review, synthesize, and respond to the draft EIS comments and begin drafting the final EIS once the draft EIS comment period concludes on April 20th, 2026. Second, after independently reviewing the final EIS, the Corps will publish a notice of availability of the final EIS and allow the required 30-day waiting period to elapse in summer to fall of 2026. Third, the Corps will prepare a record of decision to document our final decision. The projected completion of the record of decision is fall 2026. Fourth, the Corps will provide the final decision to the applicant once the record of decision is complete. This concludes the presentation on the DEIS process and on the proposed project. All notices and other information for the EIS will be available on the Corps' website. As discussed, we are seeking your comments on the DEIS. To ensure consideration, please submit your comments by April 20th, 2026. The preferred way to submit comments is by email. You may submit comments by email to nexteis@usace.army.mil. You may also submit comments by mail to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Portland District. Attention James Davidson for the next project. Post Office Box 2946, Portland, Oregon 97208-2946. We will also accept oral comments during these public meetings. We will now begin the portion of the meeting where we will accept oral comments. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to comment. Please note, written comments and oral comments will be considered equally. Anyone in attendance may request to speak and provide comments. If you would like to speak, please click the raise hand icon in Teams. If you joined today's meeting by phone and would like to speak, please dial *5 to virtually raise your hand. during the meeting you decide you would no longer like to speak, you can click the raise hand icon again to lower your hand, or for those on the phone, you can dial *5 again to lower your hand. If you are called on and no longer wish to speak, you can simply say pass and we will move on to the next participant. Note, we will only accept one request per person to speak during this meeting. Please listen for your name to be announced and you will be directed to unmute your microphone. After unmuting, you can quickly check to see that we can hear you. For our record, please begin by stating and spelling your first and last name. For example, John Smith, JOHN SMITH. If you are commenting on behalf of an organization, please state the name of the organization. If you are attending this meeting as part of a large group, which may be affiliated with the same organization on a shared computer or phone line, please consider designating a single speaker to comment on behalf of your group. If there are multiple individuals that would like to comment using a shared computer or phone line, please raise your hand, again via your shared Teams interface or phone line, once a speaker in your group concludes their comments. This will allow your next speaker to re-enter the queue. We will endeavor to allow elected representatives to speak first. The timer will start when you begin to provide your comments. Please focus your comments on either the adequacy of the draft EIS or the merits of the alternatives discussed, or both. Comments should explain why the issues raised are important to the consideration of potential environmental effects and alternatives to the proposed project. As this is a public meeting, the use of profanity, personal attacks, or inappropriate language will not be tolerated. Anyone not following these guidelines will be muted, and we will move on to the next participant. Thank you for your participation, and we look forward to your comments. As a reminder, we will conclude this public meeting promptly at the scheduled time. Depicted on the slide is a screenshot of the Teams meeting interface. Across the top menu bar, you will note the location of the raised hand icon. Click here if you would like to speak. Click here again if you no longer wish to speak. You will also note the microphone icon in the top menu bar. Participants are muted and will not have video capability. Participants will be called on and instructed to click the mic to unmute their microphone. Raised hands will display at the top of the participants list on the right side of your screen. As a reminder to our phone participants, dial *5 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute when you are called on to speak. We'll now begin the portion of the meeting where we'll receive your comments. As a reminder, we're going to try to wrap this meeting up around 8 p.m. If we need to go longer to hear as many comments as possible, we could extend as late as 8:30. Just as a reminder, you can always submit written comments that will be considered equally to oral comments until April 20th, 2026. With that said, I'd like to go ahead and start with our first speaker, Representative Mark Gamba. Your microphone should be enabled. Representative Gamba, I'm unable to hear you. We will move on to our next speaker. County Commissioner Casey Garrett, your mic is on.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Casey Garrett. That's CASEY-GARRETT, and I am a Columbia County Commissioner. I join my fellow commissioners, local and state elected officials, and the Governor of Oregon in strong support of Next Renewable Fuels' proposed facility at Port Westward. As a commissioner, I've followed this project closely from the very beginning, and I have evaluated both evaluated it both from technical and community perspectives, Port Westward is uniquely suited for this facility. It's zoned rural industrial plan development, served by existing road, rail, and a rare self-scouring deep water port less than 50 nautical miles from the Pacific Ocean. The site has a long history, industrial history, from a World War II munitions depot to today's PGE's 650 megawatt generating plant and global partners renewable diesel terminal. Also, thanks to a 2001 Port Westward Urban Renewal District, major infrastructure upgrades, including rail, road, and water systems, were completed ahead of schedule and fully paid for. These investments already exist. Other sites analyzed in the draft EIS would require extensive new construction and far greater environmental disruption. My support for this project also comes from the overwhelming backing I hear from constituents, business owners, educators, public safety officials, and everyday residents who see this as a generational opportunity. While there are a small group of opponents that remain vocal, the broader community recognizes the project's benefits. The draft EIS thoroughly addresses concerns and demonstrates that this facility can operate safely while delivering significant environmental gains, including major wetland restoration, creation, and enhancement. This project will create thousands of construction jobs, hundreds of permanent family wage jobs, and substantial and much needed new tax revenues for our schools and county services. Next has shown a remarkable commitment by navigating Oregon's stringent permitting processes without seeking local tax incentives or regulatory shortcuts. They chose this site simply because it is the right one. So with that, I urge the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to promptly process public comments, finalize the EIS, and approve the necessary permits so this important project can move forward. And I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker would be Ms. Betsy Johnson. Your microphone is enabled. I'm unable to hear you, Ms. Johnson. Ms. Johnson, I was unable to hear your comments. We'll move on to our next speaker, Ms. Margaret Magruder.
Good evening. I'm Margaret Magruder, M-A-R-G-A-R-E-T, M-A-G-R-U-D-E-R, a resident of rural Clatskanie and an elected Columbia County Commissioner. Over 100 years ago, a man with a vision came to Clatskanie. He was a traveling salesman for Roebling Wire Rope Company. During his travels from California to Alaska, he saw the reclamation of the marshy land that was happening in the Sacramento Valley, creating farmland from tidal land. As he traveled through the Clatskanie, Longview areas along the Columbia River, he saw similar marshy land and envisioned this same type of reclamation occurring. He formed the Lower Columbia Agricultural Company with investors E.S. Collins and Peter Bricks, and they reclaimed over 10,000 acres of land in the Clatskanie area. His dream became a reality. This man was R.B. Magruder, my grandfather. After building the dikes and developing the drainage systems, he marketed the land as high-quality agricultural land. He and his wife farmed several thousand acres, some of which remains in agricultural production to this day. As the last of the family still on the land, I'm struck by the courage of my grandfather's vision, and I'm thankful that I've had the honor of continuing to further his vision, both as a farmer and as an involved citizen. And as I consider the next clean fuels facility proposed to be built on a small portion of this land, I find myself thinking about what RB would advise. The over 10,000 acres of agricultural land he created is currently only minimally in agricultural production, much not in high value. In the 1970s, Crown Zellerbach came in and proposed growing hybrid poplar trees for paper production. This didn't prove to be a highly successful enterprise, so now there are acres of poplar trees waiting to be discovered for new use, and perhaps they can be utilized as feedstock for the next renewable project. Under current Oregon land use regulations, this reclamation of tidal land would never have happened, and we would not be having this conversation today. We would not have the opportunity to site a facility that will bring welcome tax dollars and needed jobs to this area. We'll utilize a self-scouring port facility and will produce a clean fuel product. R.B. Magruder had big dreams and he achieved his vision, and I'm confident he would be the first to support the next clean fuels project and to see another vision become a successful reality on the land that he reclaimed over 100 years ago. I urge you to please publish a final EIS without delay and approved next permit for the Port Westward site. Thank you.
Our next speaker would be Mr. Brad Archuleta. Your microphone should be enabled.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. For the record, my name is Brad Archuleta, B-R-A-D-A-R-C-H-U-L-E-T-A. I am providing testimony in support of the proposed biofuels project in Clatskanie, Oregon. I'm currently a business agent organizer for Local 290 plumbers and steam fitters. I offer this perspective based on my professional firsthand experience working in and around major industrial and energy facilities along the Columbia River corridor. I have worked at Portland General Electric's Beaver facility and at Port Westward, both which operate within the Beaver Drainage District and along the Columbia River. In addition, I have worked at the Georgia Pacific Wana Paper Mill and the Dyna Nobel Chemical Facility. These are significant industrial operations located in close proximity to the sensitive environmental areas, agricultural land, and critical waterways. Through my direct involvement at these sites, I have observed how modern industrial facilities are designed, regulated, and operated to meet strict environmental standards. Importantly, these facilities have operated for years without causing environmental degradation to the surrounding farmland, waterways, or drainage systems. The Beaver Drainage District continues to function as intended, and adjacent agricultural operations have coexisted alongside these industries successfully. I'm aware of the concerns that have been raised regarding the proposed biofuels project, particularly around environmental impact and compatibility with nearby agricultural uses. Based on my experience, those concerns can be effectively addressed through proper design, oversight, and regulatory compliance, just as they have been as existing facilities for decades in the same geographic area. This region is not new to industrial development. It is a well-established industrial corridor with a proven track record of balancing economic activity with environmental stewardship. Industries have operated adjacent to the farms here for decades without conflict, demonstrating that coexistence is both practical and sustainable. The proposed biofuels facility represents an opportunity to build on that track record, bringing jobs, investment, and energy innovation to the community while utilizing an area already suited for this type of development. Based on my professional experience and direct observation of similar facilities operating safely in this region, I believe this project can and will operate responsibly without adverse environmental impact and in harmony with existing agricultural and industrial uses. For these reasons, I respectfully support the approval of the proposed biofuels project. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Sean Clark. Your microphone should be enabled, Mr. Clark. I'm unable to hear you, Mr. Clark. You'll have to unmute your microphone to speak. We'll move on to our next speaker, Mr. Randall Fries. Your microphone should be enabled, sir. I'm unable to hear you, sir. We'll move on to our next speaker. Miss Charla Moffett, your mic should be enabled. As a reminder, you'll have to unmute your microphone on your end to be able. As a reminder, it's the microphone icon in the top menu bar that you'll have to enable on your end, anyone who wishes to speak. So Ms. Moffett, I'm unable to hear you if you've enabled your microphone. Our next speaker, let's move on to Mr. Andrew Simron. Your microphone is enabled on my end. Again, please go to the top of your menu bar and
Yes, hello, can you
enable the
hear me?
microphone. I've got you loud and clear, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, hello. My name is Andrew Simron, ANDREW SIMRIN. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comment. And I live in Eugene, Oregon. I live close to a fuel holding facility here near the Eugene Rail Yard. And I am urging the Army Corps of Engineers to deny the next project and to find that it's contrary to the public interest and inconsistent with the requirements of Section 404 of the Clean Water Act. I'd also like to discuss the merits of all the alternatives and why alternative 4 is the best alternative that's been proposed thus far. We know that the purpose and need will not be able to be met by Next and its refineries. So that's really the primary reason. Another primary reason why the permit should be denied, and also reflecting that it's not in the public interest in the final draft draft EIS, or in the final EIS rather. We know that there is like a demand for these lower carbon fuels. I myself drive a diesel vehicle, but it is important that we move away from this, because we know that this project can't meet the purpose and need to meet the demand of fuels mandated. So really, there's no need to have this be approved. We see that refineries and places like this are often targets when it comes to geopolitical, conflict. We see that with the war in Iran here. So this is a potential national security risk, especially with vessels carrying these fuels up and down the Columbia River and on rail. So I have a lot of concerns. Again, I urge you to deny the permit, and I thank you for your opportunity to provide comment.
Thank you. Next speaker is Mr. Brian Aguri. Your microphone is enabled, sir. I'm unable to hear you, Mr. Aguri. Again, you'll have to unmute yourself on your. We'll have to move on to our next speaker, given the number of people in the queue. Moving on to phone number ending in 8820. Remember, you'll have to push *6 on your phone to unmute yourself to begin your comments. Your microphone's enabled. You should be able to speak anytime.
Hello.
I can hear you.
Okay. My name is Stuart Gray, STUARTGRAY. I've been a resident of the Great Vow Zen Monastery for almost 7 years. Listen. Did you hear that? No. That was silence you may have missed. How do you put a price on silence in perspective, unless you don't have silence any longer? For about 25 years, the monastery has been a refuge for many, many people to take time away from their tremendously busy lives. High-level professionals, fathers, mothers, students, Generation Xers, consumed with constant media output. Today, our minds are filled with concerns about jobs, family, relationships, environmental degradation, pollution, cost of living, and now political and social polarization and war. It is a lot to hold in one's mind. For many, it's too much to hold in one's mind and have to think about these problems throughout the day. This is where the true value of a monastery shows up. To remove the stress which comes from constant thinking about all that's going on, you have to become quiet, relax, and allow these worrisome problems to drop away. There are techniques we teach to help achieve a relaxed and calm mind, but it is essential there is a quiet place to do this. For over 2 decades, the monastery has provided a quiet place for troubled minds to relax. If this project is approved, silence will be replaced with a cacophony of noise. Imagine for a moment what the impact that comes from the tremendous noise of pounding, driving of 15,000 pilings into place, or the constant sound of trucks backing up when 2 million tons of fill is brought in. Silence will be lost. It is one of the most important aspects of this monastery. The next project will disrupt the meaningful delivery of its core activity, the ability to offer a mind filled with activity, the silence it needs. My neighbors and I believe this report has not adequately addressed the many problems which continue to surface concerning the next project. The DEIS has failed to account for an established monastery, which is extremely noise sensitive. I asked the Corps of Engineers to deny this permit. Sometimes no action is a proper action. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Mr. Brandon Schilling. Your microphone is enabled on my end.
Disconnect it. Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. I just want to take a moment to have some accountability for the politicians and union members using our time tonight, pretending to represent anyone besides the people who are promising to put money in their pockets. Commissioner Garrett, we are not small opposition. We are diverse. We are all across the county, and we actually do our homework and speak to the applicable criteria. This is what this hearing is for, not regurgitating next media campaign or misrepresenting the history and character of a place where you do not live. We are here to talk about major issues which you may choose to ignore, but that the Army Corps must address. Namely, I'm confused why the Army Corps is presenting this levy as provisionally accredited, but the Corps' own 2014 evaluation, along with myriad other studies cited by the BDIC, has found it doesn't meet federal standards and that the district is still at risk of flooding. So how exactly is the DEIS able to evaluate this levy if, in fact, it is failing? Why is the Army Corps defaulting on their responsibility for their own construction? Why hasn't the levy been maintained to meet federal standards? Does the Corps have a plan to fix these well-known, well-documented issues? And why has the Army Corps not been willing to be transparent and honest about this major issue? This project now requires a Section 408 review. Why did it take litigation to get there? How can we trust an honest assessment from you now, given you were willing to bypass these issues in the past? Is the applicant being allowed to change the proposal to avoid a 408 review? And if so, how can the Army Corps justify bypassing consideration of this degrading levy? And if the applicant is allowed to avoid a 408 review, what does that mean for everything already invested in this DEIS, our time and our resources? And if the applicant is allowed to avoid a 408 review, what does that say about the character of this process and the Army Corps? Furthermore, the DEIS describes a marine-based facility using low-carbon feedstocks, but the company's own SEC filings point to a majority of feedstocks coming from rail-delivered commodity crops like soy. So what are you actually evaluating here? How are transportation, emissions, rail traffic, and impacts being modeled if the applicant is presenting contradicting models? And who's responsible for tracking these constant changes to the proposal as new permits are reviewed against past permits containing different versions of the project? How are you making sure you're evaluating the actual project as it would exist? What if the applicant makes even more changes to the project after this process or returns to an earlier permitted version? As you've heard from other testimony, this project as it is now is nothing close to what it was when permitting began. Furthermore, how does a project approaching Title V emissions, Oregon's highest permissible pollution, get classified as de minimis? How are you evaluating long-term exposure to hazardous emissions across our entire local airshed, including impacts to farms, homes, schools, and nearby communities? How are you looking at impacts to agriculture, especially where stormwater, treated or untreated, moves through a connected drainage system that's used for irrigating our food supply? And why is light pollution not a major part of this evaluation? Lastly, there's already an economy here, farming, fishing, food production where it's supposed to be, on world-class soils. This economy is growing rapidly and supports our communities not only with sustenance, but also with thousands of jobs. Port Westward has some existing industry. It is not some industrial park as the applicant, union workers, and politicians would have you believe. So how are inflated projections of jobs being weighed against existing livelihoods? Do you have the parameters to measure small, medium, and large existing business and their connection to the bigger economy? And are temporary
Mr. Schilling,
construction
just
being
as a
prioritized
reminder,
over the long-term
3 minutes
economy
has
that's
expired.
already in place? Those are all the questions I have time for now. Thank you. Oh, by the way, the same company that next would have do their wetlands is
Next speaker will be phone number ending in 3160. Your microphone is enabled. Please unmute yourself and begin to speak.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Betsy Johnson, BETSYJOHNSON. I have served Northwest Oregon for more than 20 years in the state legislature and was an elected commissioner of the Port of St. Helens prior to that. Throughout my career, I've been deeply committed to the success of this region, and the next facility represents another major opportunity for the region, the economy, and the environment. I'm sure you've heard the overwhelming support for this project from local citizens all the way up to the governor of the state of Oregon. Don't take that lightly. Having this much support and from all levels of government is a significant indicator of what a tremendous project this is. The project team has done an excellent job of designing the project around the community feedback and bringing forth a concept that supports Oregon's aggressive decarbonization goals. As part of the NEPA process, I understand that the Army Corps of Engineers is tasked with determining if Port Westward is the best location for the project. I and thousands of others throughout Oregon agree that this is an ideal location for the project. Next, we'll be able to take advantage of infrastructure already in operation, a deep water port that can handle additional traffic, and existing multimodal access to rail and road operations. A self-scouring dock at Port Westward avoids the need for maintenance dredging that other locations would absolutely require. It is far past time that we take advantage of the infrastructure already in place to bring this economic juggernaut to Columbia County. But beyond the technical merits of this location, I'd like to highlight the region's other advantages. We have skilled workforce that can construct and operate this facility. We have trade schools, community college, affiliations with four-year universities and technical institutes that can train the next generations to work at this facility. We have strict local and state oversight to ensure the safety of the community and the environment. And we have established a collaborative and transparent relationship with the developer to ensure that Next remains a responsible corporate citizen in the community. I urge the Army Corps of Engineers to approve the selection of Port Westward for this project and approve the final federal permit so that we can finally, after years of permitting, break ground on this excellent project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Diana Gordon. Your microphone is enabled. I'm unable to hear you, Ms. Gordon.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thanks. Diana Gordon, Gordon, and I live in Washougal, Washington. For several years, I volunteered with the Southwest Washington Amphibian Monitoring Project, and we spent a lot of time in ponds and swamps and wetlands, so I'm really interested in the impact this refinery may have on the wetlands at the port. As you know, wetlands have many ecological functions, like habitat support, water quality improvement, and hydrologic storage. These functions are supported by precipitation, surface runoff, and groundwater. In the wetlands at Port Westward, where Next wants to place this facility, the vegetation and hydrology have been altered somewhat by historical and current uses, like agricultural ditching, according to Section 3.8.1 in the DEIS. However, as I understand it, the Beaver Drainage Improvement Corporation has been very successful in managing this area for many years. They make sure nearby farmers have adequate water when they need it and drain it off when they don't. This is a valuable and successful service for a unique farming area, as well as protecting water quality and so on. I think the knowledge and competence the BDIC has developed over the years cannot be underestimated. As an example, in 1987, Fish and Wildlife acquired Steigerwald National Wildlife Refuge near Washougal here. It's behind levees the Army completed in 1966. Later, however, they found that the levees allowed flooding in nearby lowlands, including the port, the city, and private property, which the port then had to pump out into the river. So in 2022, a new plan was completed, the Steigerwald Reconnection Project, which allows excess water to drain naturally into the Columbia River. My point is that Steigerwald was not the Army's first project. They've been doing that kind of thing for many years, and they're good at it. Yet even their design needed a modification eventually. I do not think we should trust an untested company like Next to get the mitigation measures for this project right the first time. Wetlands are under siege all over the country, from construction and industry. For example, look at Sackett versus the EPA in 2023. Wetlands' importance for water quality cannot be minimized. We should not risk losing our wetlands. It's too big a gamble to be in the public interest. Please deny the Clean Water Act permit for this project. Thank you. And my husband has a comment too. Could he just go ahead?
What you'll need to do is just re-raise your hand and re-enter the queue.
Oh,
Please.
okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker will be Mr. Justin Johnson. Please go to the top and enable your microphone and you can speak.
Hello, mic check. Can you hear me?
Got you.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Justin Johnson, Justin Johnsson. I live a few miles from the proposed project site. I'm speaking today to firmly oppose this project at the Alternative 1 location. While I fully support strengthening our industrial infrastructure and transitioning to renewable energy, forcing a petrochemical facility into this fragile ecosystem is fundamentally irresponsible. To build here, Next must permanently destroy over 100 acres of highly functional wetlands, drive over 15,000 steel pilings, and pour over 6,500,000 cubic yards of fill into a highly liquefiable floodplain. This extreme level of geoengineering is an obvious warning sign that this site is naturally unfit for the proposed project. Simply because you can build a thing does not mean that you should build a thing. The DEIS ignores the hazards of storing millions of gallons of flammable fuel in seismic liquefaction zone. It wrongly assumes that the existing levee system can contain toxic spills, despite evidence that it cannot contain such a burden. Consequently, a flood or levee failure would cause spills that would devastate local farms and critical habitat. Furthermore, Next's 466-acre mitigation plan looks good on paper, but is contextually destructive. Decommissioning the vital drainage to create stagnant wetlands will likely breed pests and pathogens, threatening nearby crops. As authorities have warned, wetland creation is legally and functionally incompatible with drainage district operations, risking the loss of essential irrigation water rights that sustain our agricultural community. The project also threatens our electrical infrastructure by demanding up to 36% increase in power consumption from the local utility district. This strain endangers the grid reliability essential for local flood control systems and shift costs to ratepayers. Furthermore, placing the volatile refinery adjacent to the PG&E power plant creates an unacceptable risk of total grid failure during an emergency. Additionally, the environmental assertions made regarding the project essentially amount to greenwashing. Despite promoting waste feedstocks, Next SEC filings reveal reliance on purpose-grown crops transported long distances due to insufficient local supply. The filing also states Next does not have the experience in developing, construction, or operations of these types of facilities. Additionally, the facility will emit over 1.1 million tons of greenhouse gases annually from the natural gas required for hydrogen production. These environmental concerns compounded by Next leadership history, specifically the failed abandoned Trans-Nemesis biofuels plant in Odessa, Washington, that required an EPA Superfund cleanup. Such a track record casts serious doubts on their ability to safely manage a refinery in a sensitive port estuary like this one. The DEIS must include some sort of a safe and thorough sundowning assessment and plan in regards to this situation. While the pursuit of sustained economic development and the expansion of our local tax base are certainly valid objectives, they cannot be prioritized over the prevention of a potential ecological catastrophe. Our community must be forced to relinquish high-functioning wetlands and irreplaceable
Your time has expired.
for a project that
Wrap up.
requires such extreme intervention to be compelled in an unsuitable landscape. The consequences of proceeding based on fundamentally flawed assumptions are too severe to ignore. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Ms. Samantha Hernandez.
Hello, can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Samantha Hernandez, and I am the Healthy Climate Program Director at Oregon Physicians for Social Responsibility. And we are an organization of over 2,000 health professionals and public health advocates from across the state working to address the gravest threats to health and survival. Oregon PSR is testifying today to oppose Next Renewable's draft environmental impact statement. A project like this is uniquely ill-suited to this area. Approval of this DIS would have devastating impacts on human health and environmental health. There are major disadvantages. Pollution from the facility would harm fish habitat and pollute the water that so many communities depend on for sustenance and recreation, including local agricultural, religious, and fishing communities region-wide, not to mention the significant volatile organic compound pollution that will impact the region's smog pollution. The company also makes little effort to provide realistic information and reliable safety studies about routine impacts, major spill impacts, or worst-case scenarios in a seismic event. And this is particularly concerning considering the fact that this area is at extreme risk and prone to violent shaking in an earthquake, which is not ideal for storing, refining, and shipping toxic flammable fuel. For instance, the DIS provides an inadequate analysis of the health impacts of exposure to hazardous materials, fire, explosion, and chemical releases. And so who bears the brunt of these consequences? Site workers, nearby communities, downstream communities, farms, wetlands, high-quality agricultural land, wildlife, and more. Oregon PSR strongly urges you to deny this DEIS and to listen to community members and their concerns. Do not put the health and safety of the environment, wildlife, and people at risk for a polluting project like this and a DIS based on inadequate assessments. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Deborah Hazen, your microphone is enabled. You can speak now. I'm unable to hear you. As a reminder, you have to go to the top menu bar and enable your microphone. I'm still unable to hear you. Perhaps log back in and we'll move on to our next speaker. Ms. Deborah Higbee, your microphone is enabled.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. My name is Deborah Higbee, D-E-B-R-A-H-I-G-B-E-E, and I represent the Oregon chapter of the Sierra Club and its 50,000 members and supporters. We urge you to deny the Clean Water Act permit for the Next Renewable Fuels project. The project is contrary to the public interest and poses significant unavoidable environmental harms. One of the most serious impacts is the destruction of wetlands. Approximately 90% of the project site consists of wetlands or waterways underlain by hydric estuarine soils rich in organic carbon, peat layers, and hydraulic functions that have developed over thousands of years. These wetlands are a critical carbon sink, Yet the draft environmental impact statement fails to adequately analyze the project's climate impacts. The project would permanently eliminate 104 plus acres of wetlands. This loss is unacceptable. Wetlands play a vital role in climate regulation by capturing and storing large amounts of carbon dioxide in their soils and vegetation, especially in coastal systems where this blue carbon can remain sequestered for centuries or millennia. When wetlands are drained or destroyed, that stored carbon is released back into the atmosphere, accelerating climate change. The Columbia River estuary contains nationally significant wetlands that are irreplaceable. This highly biodiverse ecosystem supports more than 70 species of fish, hundreds of bird species, and numerous mammals, reptiles, and amphibians. The loss of these wetlands will have profound consequences for animal life, climate stability, water quality, and regional infrastructure, including roads and levees. Proposed mitigation cannot compensate for these losses. Replacing complex, mature wetlands with constructed systems consistently fails to achieve no net loss due to high failure rates, long timelines for ecological function to develop, and inadequate long-term monitoring. In addition, once operational, the next facility would emit approximately 1.15 million tons of greenhouse gases annually, comparable to a petroleum refinery and roughly equivalent to the emissions of a major Oregon city. The facility would also consume 18 million standard cubic feet of natural gas per day to power its hydrogen production, an amount comparable to the annual natural gas use of Eugene, Oregon. The DEIS fails to account for methane emissions associated with this level of fossil fuel consumption. The Oregon Chapter Sierra Club will be submitting a letter that will provide additional details regarding the DEIS, such as failure to adequately analyze or disclose odor impacts. Where information is incomplete, the agency must disclose that uncertainty and explain its significance. Underestimation of impacts from feedstock composition and operational variability. Environmental justice communities are disproportionately exposed without analysis. Failure to adequately analyze surface water and floodplain impacts. Failure to adequately analyze groundwater impacts for alternative ones. And for these reasons, we respectfully request that you deny the permit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Jacob Stallings. Your microphone is enabled. I'm unable to hear you, Mr. Stallings. Remember, you'll have to enable your microphone on the top menu bar. Or perhaps log out of the meeting and prior to logging back in, make sure your microphone is enabled. I'm unable to hear you. We'll move on to our next speaker, Mr. Graham Trainer. Your microphone is enabled, sir. You can speak now.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Graham Trainer, and I am proud to serve as president of the Oregon Labor Federation, AFL-CIO, representing working people in every corner of our beautiful state and in every sector of Oregon's economy. Thank you for taking public comments and listening to so many voices. I've been following this project for many years, and the voices I've heard are overwhelmingly in favor of this project. Not just the voices of union members, but the voices from elected officials, local residents, environmental leaders, and environmental justice advocates. That's because this project is balanced. It brings economic development along with healthier air, healthier transportation corridors, significant wetland restoration, greener transportation fuels, and modern use of existing infrastructure. The Oregon Labor Federation represents over 300,000 working Oregonians, and we want projects that help transition our economy to be less reliant on fossil fuels. We want Oregon to be less reliant on other states. We want to see our values embedded in new industries. These are some of the precise reasons why we strongly support NEXT at Port Westward. NEXT has already gone through the rigorous permitting evaluations for air, water, community impact, greenhouse gas life cycle analysis, wetland impacts and mitigation, and much, much more. At each turn, NEXT has met Oregon's high standards, as you've heard. And while doing so, they have remained committed to centering the working people of Oregon in ways, frankly, we wish every developer or business would, and at every stage of this future project. The draft EIS clearly concludes that Port Westward is an ideal location for this facility when compared against alternatives. It identifies potential impacts, but also identifies solutions through mitigation, best available control technologies, intentional design choices, and enhanced safety measures and features. The Oregon Labor Federation is proud to join alongside other supporters like the mayors, legislators, Oregon's governor, unions representing construction, operations, and maintenance workers, and local residents. We believe that this permit application should be approved to ensure that quality, high-wage union jobs can be created and maintained throughout the state and to ensure that Oregon can meet its stated climate goals. Thank you again for the opportunity to provide comment.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be phone number ending in 2031. Your microphone is enabled. Reminder that you'll need to unmute your phone. Via *6. I'm unable to hear you. Let's move on to our next speaker. Ms. Diana Winther, your microphone is enabled. Reminder, you'll have to unmute your microphone on your end, Ms. Winther. I'm unable to hear you. Next speaker will be Ms. Heidi Thompson. Your microphone is enabled. You can speak now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Heidi Thompson. I first became involved in this when the county rezoned some of our prime farmlands back in 2017. The hardest working, most honorable American families I know operate centennial farms in this district, and I take pride in being a good neighbor to these folks. I wonder how 3,500 workers during construction and hundreds of workers and their families coming here upon completion will affect a small town where everyone knows and waves at each other. There's a currently dangerous disconnect between the county's grand industrial ambition and its duty to protect a simple gravel road in the district. Numerous reports of being shot at, unlawful detainment, intimidation, and assault with firearms have been filed against residents on Erickson Dike Road. The Sheriff's Department stated that Public Works has changed road classifications with no legal basis, leaving them unclear on civil ramifications for those affected. As noted, Truett Stalzenberg, who is the BDIC director, says these unauthorized encroachments by levies who feel the private property belongs to them includes heavy iron beams driven into the levee without U.S. Army Corps permits, which are violations that threaten levee certification. If the county cannot enforce the removal of simple gates to allow for levee inspection, how can we trust them to oversee a $3 billion giant industrial experiment? In the wake of Columbia County's numerous recent failed industries, we are being asked to bet on a project whose scale has never been attempted in the U.S. The largest facility of its size is half of this. The site requires 48 football fields of 10-foot deep fill. The leadership has a history of failure, and Governor Kotek's push to streamline it is not a sound economic plan. Section 404 of the Clean Water Act mandates a look at alternative sites with infrastructure and seismic hardware to handle this. Next could build today in Portland, Tacoma, or by reducing 1 acre of requirements in Kalama. Volume 9, Appendix 3Q, and the DEIS list a conservative estimate of over 1,000 workers and 600 trucks on the road at peak construction, 1,600 added vehicles in a town of 1,700. This is a daily 15% increase to Highway 30 traffic, a 40 to 60% increase to Clatskanie City Center traffic, and a 300 to 750% increase to traffic on the roads to Port Westward. As a school bus driver, the proposed 7 a.m. start time is right when we pick up kids. What mitigation plan is in place to absorb this volume without compromising the safety of our community? I am asking for immediate removal of unauthorized gates to protect BDIC's ability to maintain levee infrastructure and for you to rescind support of this mega industry. Klatskanai is best known for being a good place to raise a family. Let's keep it that way. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker, Miss Emma Mavros, your microphone is enabled.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Hi, my name is Emma Mavros, and I'm a mother of 3 living and farming in Klatskanai. My husband commutes to Portland and back every day, adding 3 hours to his workday. We are deeply affected by the lack of work in this area, and we still oppose Next. The health of our children will always come first. Volume 3, Part 1, Appendix 3F of the EIS explores the social cost of this project. This is a monetary value intended to represent expected harm the project will have on our land and our health as a result of increased CO2 emissions. This goes beyond tree hugging. The bill comes for us later in the form of damaged assets and medical bills. A net social cost of $20 billion will disproportionately affect Columbia County. They are allowed to offset this number by calculating the reduced emissions from the biofuel this project produces, giving us an adjusted social cost of negative $60 billion. This is highly misleading at the local level. Their biofuel is not reducing emissions in the same place that their refinery would be causing emissions. Next would produce over 1 million tons of CO2 emissions annually, carrying a long-term social cost of $20 billion, which is not offset locally. Next will be far from carbon negative as far as the county is concerned, and our true social cost has not been calculated at all. So in my opinion, the EIS is incomplete. Oregon will be able to call itself eco-friendly while we foot the bill. The bill is infrastructure we can't afford to maintain under increased traffic, doctor visits, and land that we can't heal. This report anticipates our struggle and justifies it because it's technically carbon negative on the larger scale. I support no action being taken on this project because the social cost for Columbia County has not been determined, and I will not be a sacrifice for the larger state of Oregon or Tina Kotek's campaign. No, just no. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, Mr. Robert Camarillo, your microphone is enabled, sir. I'm unable to hear you. You'll have to go and unmute your microphone on your end in the top menu bar on Teams. Next speaker, Miss Nikki Mandel. Your microphone is enabled. You may speak.
Hello, excuse me. Hello, my name is Nikki Mandel, Nikkimandell. I urge strongly the Army Corps to choose alternative 4, no action. As the draft EIS admits, alternative 4 is, quote, the least environmentally damaging practicable alternative. Please deny the Section 404 wetlands permit. I'm a member of the CEI Hub Task Force, and my involvement in the task force's public education work has taught me a lot about the dangers of locating combustible flammable fuels in areas that are subject to multiple natural and man-made hazards, regardless of the feedstock. The next project proposes similar dangers to those that plagued Portland's CEI Hub. We don't need another ticking time bomb in the Pacific Northwest. The next project is not in the public interest. I recognize that there will be many short-term labor opportunities and some tax revenues to the immediate community. However, it's incumbent on the Corps to assess the project as a whole, including environmental and broad socioeconomic impact. The DIS largely underestimates the severity of these dangers, or in some cases ignores them altogether. A few examples. The DEIS recognizes, quote, that the cumulative wetland impacts under alternative 1 would be major. It fails to document the impact on the existing wetland ecosystem, the law tsunami protection of filling in the wetlands, or to offer any research-based evidence that the vaguely described mitigation will be of comparable diversity or protection. The compensatory mitigation plan is to flood 466 acres of productive silviculture. This is additional destruction, not mitigation. Second, risks to the facility are not adequately addressed. For example, the DEIS states, quote, alternative one study area is susceptible to up to 100-foot high tsunamis caused by the CSC. The DEIS fails to address this danger. It's no small omission. It should be revised to address NEC's engineering ability and guarantee to build a facility that can not only withstand the CSC, but also the ensuing 100-foot high tsunami wave and inevitable aftershocks. Third, the socioeconomic impact is underreported. Another example, the DEIS states that more than 2,800 heavy-duty trucks will transport close to 70,000 tons of waste to certified landfills. Are there actually sufficient certified landfills capable of handling this amount of waste annually? Are they within the DEIS's 1/2 mile impact range? So does the DEIS consider pollution from diesel particulate matter, which is dangerous at any level? No. It must, and at a minimum, demonstrate that there is sufficient landfill capacity and include the socioeconomic impact for the entire transport route to and from those sites. I'll have additional comments in my written comments. I urge the Corps to revise the DEIS to address these and other shortcomings, and in doing so, to recognize that the evidence reveals action for no action is the only alternative in the public interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Ms. Melanie Olson. Your microphone is enabled. You may speak.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Melanie Olson. I'm with Business Oregon, and I am here on behalf of Agency Director Sophorn Chang to read a letter of support into the record. Sophorn is SOPHORNCHEANG. I'm writing to share my support for an important economic development opportunity for Oregon, the planned Next Clean Fuels project at Port Westward in Columbia County. An investment in renewable fuel production of this magnitude from the private sector offers Oregon a major economic and strategic advantage. The $3 billion investment stemming from this project in rural Oregon would have an enormous impact on our state while strengthening Oregon's position in low carbon fuel innovation. Business Oregon, in partnership with local communities, has invested nearly $20 million in infrastructure extensions and improvements at Port Westward to help set the stage for important economic development projects like Next Clean Fuels. This 1,700-acre industrial site provides a unique mix of critical infrastructure, including Portland General Electric's power generation plants, a deep draft self-scouring marine terminal on the Columbia River, rail access, and the industrial development capacity to support business operations that drive Oregon's economy and create energy security. The Next Clean Fuels project will further maximize the public investment and use of public infrastructure designed for industrial development. The creation of the more than 3,000 union construction jobs and 240 family wage jobs will provide significant employment opportunities in a rural location of the state. That economic impact will generate over $45 million annually in state and local tax revenue for critical public services and more than $5.5 million in revenue for the Port of Columbia County, impactful benefits for rural communities. Beyond the economic value, the project advances Oregon's position in the expanding market for renewable diesel and sustainable aviation fuel. This strengthens the fuel supply chain with reliable, domestically produced, low-carbon alternatives while aligning with Oregon's climate and clean energy objectives. Further, as part of this development, the more than 400 acres of nearby land will be restored to functional wetlands and would be one of the largest private restoration efforts along the Columbia River. Given the project's economic strengths and alignment with Oregon's energy and environmental goals and the thorough state-level review, I respectfully urge the United States Army Corps of Engineers to give full and timely consideration to this project. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Phone number ending in 0781. Your microphone is enabled.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Dear Mr. Davidson and the USACE review team.
Ma'am, may I stop you for just a
moment?
moment?
Yes.
I will need you to put your name in the record for us. Please state and spell your name.
Yes, Jan, Jan, Bays, B as in boy, AYS. Good.
Thank you. Yes.
And I have lived for 25 years at Great Vows Zen Monastery, 79640 Quincy Mager Road. We live in direct line of sight, direct line of smell, direct line of sound of the proposed next renewable facilities, fuel facilities. The refinery. I am a physician and I'm very concerned about the effect of the plant on air quality and the release of chemicals that can increase the risk of cancer for those living in the neighborhood. We have 45 at the monastery.
Ma'am, I'd like to
There's
stop
over
you one
850
more time.
guests.
You're breaking up just a little bit.
We have 25 to 30 people living for 5 retreats lasting from 3 to 10 days. Over 240 guests come to our Sunday programs. These guests include all age ranges from infants to young people in their 20s and 30s to people over 70. The DEIS does not include the actual predicted cancer risk of us and our guests. At the monastery, we grow a significant amount of our own food and the food for our 2 commercial-sized regions and 3/4 acres of open garden. I am concerned about the impact upon our organic gardens and the organic farms near the proposed facility, like Hopdale Farms and the nearby blueberry farm. We pick over 300 pounds of blueberries each year from the blueberry farm. We have a grocery store, the food hub in Clackamas, that sells local produce and meat. The DEIS does not contain any information about the impact on our local farms or the potential risk of certification of these organic farms. Also, as a physician, I'm very concerned that the rail cars bringing in feedstocks to the proposed refinery
It appears that we've dropped that call. Phone number ending in 5017. You may now speak. As a reminder, you'll need to unmute yourself using *6.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Diana Winther. That's DIANAWINTHER, and I'm a proud member of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 48, which has approximately 6 members in Oregon and Southwest Washington. And just to be clear, I will not be financially benefiting from this project moving forward. I'm speaking tonight in favor of the next renewable fuels project being allowed to move forward with building their facility at the Port Westward location. Many proponents have spoken about the need for this project to be located in Columbia County so the local community can benefit from the economic growth it will bring. Others have spoken about the apprentices that will be able to start a family wage career by building this facility, careers that might not otherwise get a chance to begin. The IBW and the other building trades do not bring in new apprentices unless we have work for them, since on-the-job training is an essential component of our apprenticeship programs. Both of those aspects are incredibly important, but my main purpose in speaking is to focus on the process we are all engaging in right now. I appreciate everyone's participation, even those who are in opposition. See, my role at Local 48 is as its attorney, which means I value rules, regulations, and processes. And I believe that when you follow the rules and you complete the processes, you should be allowed to move forward.
That is exactly what Next has done. They have followed the rules. They have taken into account numerous community concerns. They have committed to beneficial mitigation, and they have gone above and beyond by committing to using the local workforce so the dollars earned here stay here. I've heard numerous folks make comments tonight that claim that the draft EIS is inaccurate or even insinuate that it is dishonest. It is healthy to question things, but implying that the good folks at the Army Corps have failed to do their jobs offends me as someone who spends her days working as a worker advocate. They are the experts on this process, and it is their job to determine whether or not this is the best location for this project. Based on the draft EIS, it deserves to move forward. And then the economic benefits, the trades careers, and the decarbonization of transportation and aviation fuels will be able to move forward as well. We need to stop saying no to projects that successfully complete the very rigorous process put forward by them, required by both the state and federal government. Projects that will genuinely improve people's lives, their communities, and the environment. It is simply fair. And that fundamental fairness should not be forsaken just because some folks deem a project not good enough. If we do that, nothing will ever be good enough. All we will do is maintain a detrimental status quo that doesn't help community members feed their families, that doesn't help keep small businesses open, and doesn't help us reach our climate goals. And that would be more detrimental than any negative impacts that occur from building this facility. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, Ms. Hannah Pompey, your microphone is enabled. You may speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Alrighty. Good afternoon. My name is Hannah Pompey, HANNAH-POMPEII. I'm a resident of Clatskanie, and I'm here because I'm concerned about the environmental and community impacts of the proposed Next fuel refinery. After reviewing the EIS, I believe that the action moving forward should be denying the permit, considering a different location, or quantifying carbon sequestration loss from wetland conversion. This project does not require water to run effectively, was presented to investors as utilizing soybean from the Midwest, and according to the EIS would have a major impact on the wetlands. Wetlands as an ecosystem store 20% of our organic ecosystem carbon, making them the most important biome for sequestering carbon. When we industrialize a wetland, we expose them to oxygen, which causes rapid decomposition and leads to carbon being released as carbon dioxide and methane. Why build a sustainable factory in a location that will cause major environmental degradation in the construction process alone? 104.3 acres of wetland will be permanently filled, removing it from functioning as wetlands. That's roughly 80 football fields of surface area. Just the top meter of soil alone is estimated to store 2,000 to 4,000 metric tons of carbon. When released as CO2, that would be 7,000 to 15,000 metric tons of CO2. And that's just the first meter. The 15,200 steel piles that will be driven into the wetlands are 90 feet long. That translates to 200,000 to 400,000 metric tons of CO2 released over time. That's the equivalent to the annual emissions of 40,000 to 80,000 passenger cars. In Table 3.6, the annual emissions and construction of the mitigation and construction site is presented as being roughly 18,000 tons of CO2 per year, which is a gross underestimate. I request that rather than focusing on habitat and hydrology, the Corps should explicitly include carbon sequestration losses from wetland conversion. The EIS discloses greenhouse gas emissions, but does not monetize them. If we calculate the SCC by using the Interagency Working Group's pre-2023 SCC value of $51 per ton of CO2 and multiply it by the expected next CO2 output, we're looking at $60 million per year in climate damages. The EIS did not calculate the SCC because of Executive Order 14154. This omission understates the potential climate impact of the project. The project design as is not in the best interest of the public. This project could easily be built in a less susceptible environment to help protect our already fragile ecosystem. Please consider either an alternative analysis or no action. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, Ms. Diane Dick, your microphone is enabled. I'm unable to hear you. You may have to unmute your microphone in the top bar on your device. Next, let's move on to the next speaker, Mr. W. Paul Elder. Your microphone is enabled. You may speak. I'm unable to hear you, Mr. Elder. Perhaps, again, you'll have to unmute yourself at the microphone in the top menu bar. Next speaker, Mr. Chris Carpenter, your microphone is enabled. Next speaker, Mr. Sean Clark, your microphone is enabled. You may speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Sean Clark, SEANCLARK, and I'm the Executive Director of the Port of Columbia County. I'm speaking in support of NEXT and locating at Port Westward. Ports are economic engines charged with attracting economic opportunities to their port districts to fully utilize publicly funded port infrastructure to facilitate the movement of goods, foster trade, and provide employment. Heavy industry exists at our Port Westward Industrial Park and has for nearly a century. Residents and businesses have been living next to heavy industry for decades without major incident and without significant impacts to their way of life. This includes rail traffic, construction, facility maintenance, heavy truck deliveries, and other activities that support current Port Westward tenants. Our deepwater port at Port Westward is a unique gem. The dock is self-scouring and does not require dredging maintenance. The two berths can accommodate next shipments and deliveries, and an existing tenant already has authority to use the dock with capacity for next shipping needs. Over the past several years, the Port Commission and the Columbia County Commission have invested tens of millions of dollars on infrastructure at the site through tax increment financing and leveraging grants. Investments in a water system, a wastewater system, a NPDES permit, improved road access from the city of Clatskanie to the site, Clatskanie Rural Fire Protection District upgrades, rail infrastructure, and dock modernization. The current site infrastructure has capacity to support the next project and waits patiently to do so. Port Westward's existing modern industrial facilities are built with seismic considerations in mind. It is well documented in the EIS that the next project is designed to federal seismic standards. Constructing and operating safely in an area like drainage district is happening now with the existing industrial facilities. Further, wetland restoration also exists at Port Westward. Yes, next restoration would be bigger, but just as the EIS concludes and the Oregon Department of State Lands concluded, the wetlands are a major net benefit to the environment and community, and they will help flooding abatement, pollinator habitat growth, and enhance biodiversity for native flora and fauna. Port Westward is the right location for this well-designed project. Other alternatives have greater impacts and should not be considered. Please approve the permit for next so we can welcome this amazing opportunity to the Port of Columbia County and the region. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Phone number ending in 2888. Your microphone is enabled and you may speak. I'm unable to hear you, so perhaps unmute yourself using *6. Phone number ending in 8268. Your microphone is enabled. You may speak. Again, you'll have to unmute yourself using *6. Next speaker, Mr. Randall, your microphone is enabled. Yeah, Mr. Friesen, you'll have to unmute yourself using the mic.
Hi there, this is Randall Friesen. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Have you now?
Okay, so I'm Randall Friesen. My name is RANDALL FRIESEN. I am the Executive Director of the Columbia Pacific Building and Construction Trades Council. The council proudly represents 14 of the 15 international building and construction trades unions, totaling over 16,000 workers comprised of 10 counties of Northwest Oregon and 3 counties in Southwest Washington. I am excited to speak in support of the next project. The draft EIS touches on the job creation from a project like this, but I feel it strongly needs to include the importance of local hiring. Our members will get prioritized local hiring, and that's important because locals already know the community, the environment, the roads, and local businesses. They know their neighbors and are more likely to listen to suggestions or concerns. They know how to speak with local residents interested in learning a skilled trade, especially graduating high school students looking for a path into state registered apprenticeship programs rather than a 4-year college. Our local members can help point them in the right direction and share stories about their union careers. The Army Corps of Engineers should also give weight to NEXT's commitment to a neutrality agreement. This agreement means that not only is NEXT dedicated to using skilled union labor during construction, but they all are also fully open to workers unionizing during the operation. The NEXT facility could have a workforce that gets union benefits. We're talking family wages, better healthcare, and better worker protections. That's a big deal, and it shows a responsible corporate culture set by NEXT leadership. I'm sure you're going to read thousands of supportive comments from my local members. We're so proud of that. We know what it takes to get a project like this across the finish line, even when it's obvious the project meets the technical requirements. My membership and I would like to thank all of the elected and appointed representatives that voiced their support, and we want our Columbia County neighbors to know that we agree. Next permit should be approved so we can break ground. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Phone number ending in 2272. Your microphone is.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Davison, my name is Charla Moffett. That's SHARLA-MOFFETT. I'm Senior Policy Director for Oregon Business and Industry. OBI is a statewide association representing businesses from a wide variety of industries and from each of Oregon's 36 counties. Our 1,600 member companies, over 75% of which are small businesses, employ more than 250,000 Oregonians. OBI is here in support of Next Renewable Fuels Clean Water Act permit, Alternative 1, Port Westward Site 1 of the draft EIS. The Port Westward site is appropriately zoned for industrial use, and the next project will not require construction of a new dock or channel deepening, which minimizes impacts to the Columbia River and the associated aquatic ecosystem. Existing rail facilities and the measures outlined in the DEIS, the draft EIS, will also minimize impacts to the local community. The facility design protects water quality impacts through the construction of sufficient berms to contain any potential releases. And best available control technology meets Oregon's numerous stringent air quality regulations, many of which exceed federal standards. Therefore, this technology will be protective of public health and the environment. Importantly, NEXT will contribute to the net decrease in greenhouse gas emissions by eliminating more than 7 million metric tons of greenhouse gas every year in the form of low carbon fuels. The availability of low carbon fuels will help Oregon businesses meet state greenhouse gas reduction goals, as well as reduced net global emissions. The next project will also benefit the local environment by restoring 4 times more wetlands than are impacted by the project. Given the project's significant benefits that include wetlands restoration, minimization of impacts on the Columbia River aquatic ecosystem, creation of high-wage jobs, and major reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, it is important that the EIS is finalized expeditiously and all associated permits are granted to Next Renewable Fuels. OBI urges the Corps of Engineers to select the Port Westward alternative and allow Next projects to move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker, Mr. Johnny Walker, your microphone is enabled. I'm unable to hear you. Perhaps you could unmute your microphone in the top menu bar. Phone number ending in 7307. Your microphone is enabled. You may speak.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. Hey, my name is Chris Carpenter. I'm with IBW Local 48, probably representing around 6,000 men and women in the electrical industry across Oregon and Southwest Washington, here in support of the Port Westward location and the next project. I'll just start with, I agree with a lot of what some of the previous speakers have said, so I'll try to use everyone's time wisely here. This project, first off, it clearly means a lot of jobs in our local area for construction workers in the state of Oregon. This means that people don't have to travel out of state to try to find work. They can live and be engaged with their families and their communities and work in their backyard. Our apprenticeship program, as was noted earlier, can bring folks in when we have work that they can go do and jobs that they can work on. This means that people coming out of high school and going into apprenticeship programs can continue to work and live in their communities. I think what's really important here, as has been noted by a couple of previous speakers, is that this is a instance of very responsible development. This has gone through years of permitting. As was noted earlier, the company Next, they have passed and gone through every test, and they've passed every test that has been put up in front of them. They've continued to work with the community. They've also not sought any tax breaks. They're going to be committed to investing in the community where they will be located. This is the type of development that we need to see more of. We hear often a lot of people that will preach about the need for renewable energy, transitional energy, et cetera. And this is one of those opportunities where we can actually do it with a responsible developer. We strongly urge moving forward and utilizing the Port Westward location. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Phone number 7290, your microphone is enabled. You may speak. Reminder to push *6. I'm unable to hear you. We'll move on to the next speaker. Mr. Elliott Levin, your microphone is enabled, sir.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Good evening. My name is Elliott Levin. That's ELLIOTLEVIN. I am the Port of Columbia County's North County Operations and Terminal Manager. I am here this evening on behalf of the Port and myself to voice support for Next Renewable Fuels permit at the Port Westward site. As demonstrated through the alternative site analysis, Port Westward is an ideal location for this project. The site location is industrial zone land, supported nearly 100 years of industrial activity. At Port Westward, Next will have access to the port's self-scouring dock, which has sufficient unused capacity to support the project. Because it is self-scouring, Port Westward does not require the expensive and disruptive periodic dredging that many other sites along the river do. Locating the project at Port Westward will also take advantage of millions of dollars of state and county investments in road, rail, and water infrastructure. This infrastructure has already been built and was funded by the state and county with the intent of specifically supporting projects of this nature. Next, we'll also make use of the port's current and ongoing investments in seismic resiliency and dock modernization. Safety is the highest priority at the port. Along these same lines, the next project is being designed to meet the very stringent requirements of Oregon Senate Bill 1567. The plant will include both manual and automatic shutoff systems, buffer zones, collection systems, and enhanced containment, and its safety plans and operational systems will integrate well with overall port operations. Port Westward is already home to heavy industry that sits within the same levee system and adjacent to the same farms and cattle ranches as will Next. Importantly, Next will be a significant source of funds, technical, and other support for the Beaver Drainage District's efforts to improve its levees. I don't suggest such investment would be done purely out of altruism, but Port Westward tenants have billions of dollars in investments to protect, and existing tenants in Next will be highly motivated by self-interest to ensure that strong levees protect the district. Recent events in the Middle East underscore the importance of a reliable U.S.-based supply of renewable diesel and sustainable aviation fuel. As you heard for yourself yesterday, Governor Kotek has reinforced throughout her administration that Oregon-produced clean fuels must be encouraged, as our state is entirely too reliant on other states for our fueling needs. This project increases the domestic supply of diesel and aviation fuel with the added benefit of it being a renewable energy source with low carbon intensity. Next has already met or exceeded Oregon's stringent requirements for land, air, and water use in that stage of the permitting process, and I respectfully request that the Army Corps of Engineers choose option 1 and approve the Next renewable application for its permit at Port Westward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Phone number 2791, your microphone's enabled and you may speak. I'm unable to hear you. As a reminder, push *6 to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Johnny Walker. That's JOHNNYWALKER. And I'm one of the assistant business managers of IBW 659 here in Southern Oregon, and we represent over 2,700 members. I live in Southern Oregon, and while I know that is a faraway place from this project site, the state policies around low carbon fuels still impact us and everyone else in southwestern and eastern Oregon. Transit authorities and other transportation entities are required to use clean fuels like renewable diesel to decrease air emissions and the use of fossil fuels. The problem is that there isn't enough supply, and when there is, the logistics of our delivery system trap it in the Portland metro area for those consumers. Port Westward has advantageous logistics where Next can access the barge and shipping lanes in the Columbia River and get their fuels to customers out east and then down south. And if the fuel is made in Oregon and consumed in Oregon, then I'm pretty sure the transit authorities get even more credit since the fuel has a lower carbon intensity value. I've been following this project for years, and I think something that is telling is how the bigger consumers are reacting to the possibility of having in-state production. I've read and heard supportive statements from the Port of Portland, TriMet, Metro, Cascade East Transit, and Rogue Valley Transit. All of them want Next at Port Westward so they have reliable supply and so they can meet their decarbonization goals mandated by the state. I also want to point out that my members work around diesel vehicles every day, from heavy haulers and cranes to handheld equipment and landscaping tools. Since the renewable diesel will be in the same pumps we're used to using, and because it's chemically identical to fossil diesel, and we think it's a huge opportunity to clean up our work sites and remove unnecessary pollutants that can cause our members cardiac and respiratory issues. But that only works if the facility is somewhere that can deliver all over the state. Again, my members and I strongly believe Port Westward is the best choice. Thank you for diligently reviewing the next proposal and putting together the EIS. The conclusions in the documents show that Port Westward is the least environmentally impactful location for this project. So please approve their permit and let's get this project under construction this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Phone number 5276.
Okay.
Your microphone is enabled.
Good evening. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Thank you. I am Diane Dick, D-I-A-N-E, D-I-C-K. I live upstream from the project and downwind of the air pollution. Thank you for your regulatory oversight for the environmental health of current and future residents. Next bamboozles you to believe that they can be the third largest renewable diesel refinery in the world behind global petroleum giants Neste's in Singapore and Valero in Louisiana. Next has a track record of snake oil salesmen. Many have noted that Next has an Oregon air pollution permit. This permit, issued on August 30, 2022, is invalid given Next project design of May 2021, which states they will use the port's ship dock. The project footprint includes 4 pipelines along the route from dock to refinery. No equipment for the pipeline function is included in the air permit, though this pipeline will require heating and pumps. It should also include VCUs, which are included in the permit for rail and truck loading and unloading. This permit should be considered invalid and USACE approval denied until an air permit accounting for all air pollution sources is obtained. The Next refinery will require a lot of power. How much is 42 megawatts of power? Enough electricity to power a medium to large data center. So much power, it's about half of what all Clatskanie PUD customers currently consume. Where's the electricity going to come from? According to Next, they plan to plug into Clatskanie PUD's current base load, which is about 85% hydropower purchased from BPA. Hydropower that we all depend on in the Pacific Northwest and is becoming in short supply. BPA requires their approval of all significant increases in power load. Next will likely be required to purchase their power from market sources with a high percentage produced from fossil fuels. USACE should deny approval of the Next project until accurate estimates of power needs and resources are determined and approved by BPA. Increased carbon density of biofuel production should be reflected in the DEIS. Purpose and need. Next justifies their project based on legal mandates for West Coast markets to provide low carbon fuels. There are no legal mandates that Next produce low carbon fuels now or in the future. An example is the neighboring Columbia Pacific biofuel refinery, which no longer produces a biofuel and instead facilitates transport of fuel petroleum products. Where is the mandate preventing Next from doing the same? As to need, while there may be need in West Coast markets for low carbon fuels, there is no mandate that Next sell to them. They will likely sell to the highest bidder. In fact, Valero, the largest producer of renewable diesel in the U.S., with about 50,000 barrels per day at its Louisiana refinery, state that they export to Canada and Europe. In short, Next purpose and need statements are irrelevant and should not override the preponderance of negative and permanent impacts from Next refinery. Please deny all permits. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Ms. Sandy Mullanen, your microphone is enabled.
Hello, testing. Awesome.
I can hear
Thank
you.
you so much for your time and your efforts and your energy and consideration of all these comments. I was born in Astoria. I grew up on the Dykelands. I want to give you a little bit of a reality check. First of all, Port Westward is considered an EPA probable contamination site starting in the 40s when there were ammunitions dumped. I remember when my mom used to tell me that we had to stay out of the field with the piles of dirt because there was explosives, maybe some bombs and ammunition that might blow us up. So we knew to stay out of the field. We also wondered where all that stuff went because it was just buried in dirt when in the 50s when I was there. Well, they gave that to our Port of Columbia County, now Port Westward. People forget, but one of our county commissioners, I think it was Casey, knew that it was an ammo dump. It's never been cleaned up. When is EPA going to check for the contaminations? I'm really concerned that some of our farmers may be on contaminated soils that were never disclosed by our county. Secondly, this 100-year-old floodplain is a total misnomer. In 1948, a major flood decimated Vanport, west of Portland. Most people know this. Many diked areas on both sides of the Columbia River flooded in 1948, flooding farms and drowning livestock. In 1964, I got to witness this firsthand. Several dikes broke, flooding my grandmother's farm and others. In 96, the Beaver Dike had boils or seeps inside the dike. I'm one of the ones who found the leaks. West of Hermo Road, my dad and I had to wait for the tide to go out because Hermo Road was flooded. This is their emergency secondary road. It was completely flooded. We waited till the tide went out in order to go get hay for my horses. We also had to evacuate our home on Midland Dike, the next dike down. We were considered the large dike. Beaver was considered the small dike. We barely kept Beaver from completely flooding. The dike above it, John's District, flooded. The dike above that flooded. And it's only because we had some great people, neighbors, Kinsey and Lammy, who came in the middle of the night with dump trucks to stop the emergency. Also, they are not paying attention to the Lakota village, which is the Native American tribe that lived here. I have a lot of background in that. I cannot disclose, but Kelunky and Hermo roads are both the site of Native American burials and many artifacts, and we need to consider this as a historical, archaeological, and Native American site. I have many tools. I could talk about this later, but thank you for the time. I will be submitting another report because seismic activity has also increased here dramatically, and we have fault lines on both sides of us within 10 miles that are being active as we sit here and speak today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Mullane. I appreciate your comments. We have a few more speakers we'd like to try to clear from the queue, so we will extend the meeting to 8:30, and hopefully everyone who wishes to speak will be given an opportunity. Next speaker, Ms. Elaine Kelly, your microphone is enabled. I'm unable to hear you, Ms. Kelly. Moving on to the next speaker, Mr. Paul Elder, your microphone is enabled. Phone number ending in 6924. Your microphone is enabled. You may speak. I'm unable to hear you. As a reminder, you'll have to unmute your microphone on your device in the top menu bar by clicking on the microphone icon. And I'm unable to hear you. Try unmuting yourself again. To the speakers that I've called on that I was unable to hear, perhaps you could log out and attempt to log back in. We will give it till 8:30. As a reminder to anyone else still in attendance, you can always submit written comments on this DEIS via email at nexteis@usace.army.mil. That's nexteis@usace.army.mil. Or you could submit your comments via regular mail to U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Portland District, attention James Davidson, Next Project, P.O. Box 2946, Portland, Oregon 97208-2946. Thank you, and that will conclude this evening's meeting. But as I said, we'll stay online for a few more minutes and attempt to take any commenters that were unable to speak. Ms. Kate Murphy, your microphone is enabled should you wish to speak.
Yeah, I don't have a comment. Thank you. I just noticed that there was, oh, it just disappeared. I saw that that Diana Gordon's hand was up still from my view. That's why I see it still raised. And so I don't know if you can see that on your end.
Sure.
Because she had said her husband had a comment and her hand.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and take that comment. Thank you for reminding me. Ms. Gordon, your microphone is enabled again. You may speak.
Thank
you for being patient.
My name is Tom Gordon, Gordon. I urge you to deny next application for Clean Water Act Section 404 wetlands permit and publish a final EIS that looks past next false arguments. The proposed next fuel facility is located within the Beaver Drainage District and entirely inside the dike. The land is a wetlands with a severe subsidence rating in the event of a powerful earthquake, which has been predicted in our future. Next would permanently destroy over 100 acres of wetlands, representing one of the largest single losses of wetlands in Oregon's recent history. Also, the dikes are not certified. In certain sections, they have dropped down 3 feet. Huge trucks were taking construction materials and fill back and forth on those dikes would break them down and be a severe hazard, possibly even going into the Columbia River. I oppose this project and urge you to take alternative 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Phone number ending in 2550. Your microphone is enabled.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you so much. My name is W. Paul Elder, Paulelder. I'm the business manager of Local 290, plumbers, steam fitters, HVAC techs, and marine fitters. I'm speaking on behalf of roughly 5,254 members in Oregon, and want to point out that we have members that live in Columbia County and the surrounding counties that will work on this project. UA 290 members have direct experience building heavy industrial projects at Port Westward and around Columbia County. Our members help build and maintain PG's power plant facilities. We help build and maintain a biorefinery. We help build and maintain Dyno Nobel. We've helped and maintained Wana paper paper industry. Building industrial facilities in this environment at Port Westford is completely reasonable. We've been hearing from critics at Port Westford that isn't a place for a clean fuels refinery, but that's absurd. Heavy industry has been part of Port Westford for nearly 100 years, and facilities have operated safely while providing jobs, tax revenue, community sponsorships, internships, and a host of other benefits throughout the decades. Port Westford is an industrial area. It was zoned accordingly, and heavy industrial has existed in this area for nearly 100 years. The draft EIS clearly acknowledges that this particular property is advantageous location for a project like Next. Needs multi-model options and can operate near existing industrial facilities. The biorefinery adjacent to Next is already permitted for ship traffic, and Next shipping needs within that permit will be allowed. Power supply and sufficient transmission is already available, and there is already waterway treatment roads, rail, deep water ports to support Next. This minimizes the need to build new support services. The facility will also built more than a mile away from the river and will have contamination berms surrounding the property for added safety precautions. The facility will be equipped with modern air and water quality monitoring equipment, will have both a manual and automatic shutoff, and has been evaluated by local and state agencies to ensure that it can operate within a strict environmental and community protection standards, just like PGE, the biorefinery, and other heavy industrial facilities in the regions. Next has chosen the right place to build the project, and UA 290 would be proud to put members to work to build a safe and reliable facility, yet again, making it a thriving port. I and my 5,254 members support Next and urge the Army Corps of Engineers to approve the permit. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Murphy, your microphone is enabled should you wish to speak.
Thank you. I won't take too much time. I wasn't really planning on commenting tonight, but I agree with a lot of the comments that have already been stated in opposition to this project in this place. I urge you to look closely at the content of the comments that have been submitted by community members. This is a decision that will affect generations to come, and we are counting on you to do the right thing and protect us from the harm that this project could bring. And so I support the no action option. Thank you.
Thank you. Number ending in 0781, your microphone is enabled.
Hello, Mr. Davidson, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, somehow my testimony got cut off halfway through. My name is Jan Bays, Jan Bays, and I have lived for 25 years at Great Falls Inn Monastery, 79640 Quincy Mager Road in Clatskanie. We live in direct line of light. We live in direct line of sight, direct line of smell, and direct line of sound of the proposed Next Renewable Fuels facility. I urge you to deny the permit for this refinery. This is the third refinery in this same site that promised clean fuels and family-waged jobs. The previous ones failed within 2 years. As a physician, I'm very concerned about the effect of the plant on air quality and the release of chemicals that increase the risk of cancer for those living in the neighborhood. We have 25 to 30 people living full-time at the monastery, and each year over 800 people come to the monastery for silent retreats lasting from 3 to 10 days. Over 300 guests join us for our Sunday programs. These guests include all age ranges from infants to young people in their 20s and 30s to people over 70. The DEIS does not include the actual predicted cancer risk to us and our guests. At the monastery, we grow a significant amount of our own food and the food for our guests. We have 2 commercial-sized greenhouses and 3/4 of an acre of open garden. I'm concerned about the impact upon our organic garden and the organic farms near the proposed facility, like Hopville Farms and the nearby Poisky Blueberry Farm, where we pick over 300 pounds of blueberries each summer to serve to our guests. We now have a grocery store, the Food Hub in Clatskanie, that sells local produce and meats. The DEIS does not contain any information about the impact on our local farms or the potential risk of decertification to our organic farms. Also, as a physician, I'm concerned that the rail cars bringing feedstock to the proposed refinery will cut local communities like Scappoose, St. Helens, and Rainier in half, preventing emergency vehicles and personnel like 911 and ambulances from access to people who need their help. This week I was listening to the geese and the sandhill cranes flying over using the Pacific Flyway. A wildlife officer told me that over 100,000 birds use our estuary during their migrations. The DEIS does not account for the impact of the proposed plant on wildlife, from sandhill cranes to eagles to frogs and earthworms. I ask that you hear and address these and other reservations that we and other people who are neighbors of the proposed plant have spoken of. Thank you very much for listening to our concerns.
Thank you. Phone number 8268, your microphone is enabled. Speak. Reminder to push *6 to unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Deborah Hazen. That's DeborahHazen. I live in Clatskanie on the truck route to Port Westward in a house that has been in my family for over a century. I am very much in favor of next siting at Port Westward. Until my retirement in 2014, I was the 3rd generation of my family to own and operate the Clatskanie Chief newspaper. For 46 years, I covered the news of this area, including the school district, fire district, PUD, 911, law enforcement, library, port, roads, parks, cemeteries, etc. All of these districts are funded by local property taxes, making the amount of tax valuation within the district absolutely vital to the public services on which we all depend. For almost half a century, I reported on economic development and the lack thereof. The Clatskanie area has not grown significantly for 50 years. The area's largest employer, the Wana Mill, has scaled back employment by roughly 300 jobs since its height in the 1970s and 80s. Since 1990, our 2nd largest employer, the tax-supported Clatskanie School District, has continually lost jobs and programs because of lack of funding. Our once thriving business district has been decimated. Commercial fishing on the lower Columbia is dead, and the logging industry has steeply declined. I applaud our local agricultural community, but only a few of its members depend on farming as their primary means of support. Farming and industry have coexisted on the Beaver Drainage District for over 80 years, since the Army built the Beaver Ammunition Depot in 1942. The participation of Next in the Drainage District, which is supported by assessments on property owners, will allow for the improvement of any issues that are of concern. Next will be a net benefit to the district and the environment. Most local people who hold down family wage supporting jobs must commute elsewhere to work. Thus, they shop less in Clatskanie, are less involved in the life of the community, and less available to volunteer to coach Little League or to deliver meals to seniors or to help with the programs and projects that have always made Clatskanie a good place to live. The small group of volunteers who support these programs now are aging out. Who is going to replace us? As a local resident and reporter, I have closely followed projects proposed for Port Westward. Several failed because of the long, arduous, and expensive process of getting permits. In all my years of reporting, Next is the best hope and the best fit for Port Westward. Next is not asking for property tax exemptions. Its huge valuation will bring stabilization and improvement to all of the local public services. The influx of local jobs will revive our community again. Any inconveniences will be far outweighed by the positives it will bring. I urge you to approve the permit for Next Renewable Fuels. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robert Camarillo, your microphone is enabled should you wish to speak.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me now? Oh, perfect. Finally. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony today in support of Next Renewable Fuels and their Clean Water Act permit. My name is Robert Camarillo, spelled R-O-B-E-R-T, last name Camarillo, C-A-M-A-R-I-L-L-O. I'm the Executive Secretary of the Oregon Building Trades Unions. We are a statewide umbrella organization comprised of 31 affiliated member unions and 6 regional local councils. I'm honored to speak to you today on behalf of the tens of thousands of skilled trades workers that we represent across all of Oregon. We support Next Renewable Fuels and their Clean Water Act permit and the preferred site at Port Westward, and believe it is the least impactful site while offering the most benefits to the environment and the community. Port Westward offers the most suitable site for this project. As the Army Corps is well aware, the Port Westward site is already zoned industrial, and the property Next will build on is zoned for industrial development. At this location, Next will not require construction of a new dock in the Columbia River or deepening of the river to provide a turning basin. Other alternative sites would have too great of an impact on the Columbia River. There are already appropriate rail facilities, and the draft EIS shows that the community will not be threatened because of the Next developing the Port Westward site. During construction, Next will create more than 3,000 family-sustaining wage jobs while prioritizing local hire and state registered apprentices. During operation, the project will create over 200 family-sustaining wage jobs that the local talent pool is qualified to fill. All of the jobs created by this project during construction and after completion will be paid family-sustaining wages, provide workers with adequate health care for them and their families, and ensure safe working conditions. And Next signed a neutrality agreement so the workers will be able to organize without interference if they choose to do so. The tremendous union benefits could extend well into the long life of the facility. This project is also an opportunity for the next generation of union workers. Apprentices can be trained and get hands-on experience on the work site. They can see that learning a trade is a lifelong career and not a temporary job, like many opponents have insulted us and our profession during these hearings. It's been 8 years of permit review, 8 years of public hearings and information meetings. The public is well informed about this project, and I don't think it's credible to claim that not enough time or attention has been given to in reviewing every aspect of this proposal. It is time to approve the final permit. I'd like to thank the governor and all the elected officials that have participated in this process and put their support behind such an important endeavor. It is common knowledge that we are seeing a surge in unemployment across the state, especially in the building and construction trades, and why I am respectfully urging the Army Corps to select the Port Westward site as a preferred location and approve the federal permit without any further delay. Thank you for letting me testify today.
Thank you, Mr. Camarillo. That will conclude tonight's meeting. We had a stop at 11:30. Appreciate everyone who commented tonight. Please remember that you can submit written comments until April 20th, 2026. Thank you.